Welcome, Zahydie, to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so grateful that we were connected. So, just a little bit of a backstory of how we met is we met online, and I was reaching out to find out if people would be willing to talk to my father-in-law, who cares for his wife, who has been recently diagnosed, and about this new drug, Leqembi. So, and you volunteered and were great enough to talk to my father-in-law, and I just really appreciate that. But I don't want to jump right into that yet. I want to kind of back up a little bit and just kind of get to know you before we start talking about that. And I know we're going to talk a lot about your husband and your relationship with your husband, but I'm just curious, how did the two of y'all meet?
Um, it's actually a funny story. So I met his sister, and we met at her house. Sorry, but before I met Paco, I met his mom. I didn't know she was mom. I just met her, and she saw me, and she just looked at me, and she said, "Oh, my son is gonna fall in love with you when he sees you." And yeah, and it was kind of like, who's this lady? Like, this is so
She was
odd.
shopping for somebody. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then Paco had finished, he had ended a relationship that he had been for like a very long term, and me as well. And we met, and it was organic. It wasn't like love at first sight, to be honest.
Hmm.
You know, we had an instant connection, and then it built up and it built up. But from the first actual conversation that we had, we talked like for 5 or 6 hours. It was like 4 a.m. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
talking, and it was just like, Paco, it's a very shy person,
Mm.
very few words, always been. I like to talk a lot. So maybe it was me that I was talking. I don't even know. We
Aw,
did speak, and it was just since that moment we've been inseparable. And that was 21 years ago.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. My husband and I just had our 28th wedding anniversary this past weekend. Yeah. So I'm always curious how people meet. I love that your mother-in-law introduced you. So you knew that you didn't even have to worry about meeting her. That was a big obstacle already in some people's relationship that was already handled. And did you meet where you're living now? And where do you live now?
No, so we met actually in Puerto Rico, and I was still an undergrad, and Paco was he had already finished law school, and he was working as an attorney. Um and that was in Puerto Rico, and then we moved. I'm in Orlando, and
Okay.
we moved here because when I finished my grad school, I had to do my internship and the residencies and all that, and I matched here in Kissimmee. And I honestly thought we were gonna come like maybe like for a year or so and then go back to Puerto Rico. And then one thing led to another, and that was like 14 years ago. So it was just, it was a journey.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be here. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. So a lot of it's been here in Orlando. Um, so awesome. And what do you do for a living? What do both of
So
you still work or?
yeah, I am working. Work looks very different, and we can talk about that. It looks very
Mhm.
different than it did like 4 years ago, even like 2 years ago. I am a licensed psychologist in the state of Florida, and I have been directing a mental health practice as a private practice. I'm a clinical director for about maybe like 7 or 8 years now.
Okay.
And I also consult with local units here in Florida in the hospital and nursing homes and all that on dementia issues, basically. So
Was
I
that because of okay, didn't start out that way. Well, let's talk about your caregiving story a little bit. Like tell us I love that you kind of set the stage for it, but how did you become a family caregiver?
Oh Lord. So the very long story short is that Paco, um, he comes from a family of Alzheimer's. Like his dad
Mm,
Alzheimer's, his grandfather died of Alzheimer's, great grandma died of Alzheimer's, and then you have uncles and cousins and all that.
wow.
It was something that we always kind of knew. Like we knew, and, it's in the family. But honestly, we never thought Paco's the youngest of four siblings.
Okay.
Never thought if anybody would have guessed that it would have been Paco. So, um, in the 2020, late 2020, Paco started changing. Let's say changing. Oh, here's Paco. He wants to say hi.
Hi, Paco. Yeah, Elizabeth. Nice to meet you.
Hi. All right. So Paco started kind of having some changes. And basically we never thought about Alzheimer's because Paco was like 44, 45 at that time.
Okay.
For a whole years, he was having these changes. It was appetite changes, it was personality changes, it was just like spending habits changes, and it was like memory. What I thought it was like maybe he was depressed and anxious and all that because I'm a psychologist, so obviously I'm gonna think about mental health,
You're
right?
informed. Yes.
Yeah. Didn't think about anything else, right? And in late 2021, yeah, late 2021, he had a literally the last week of December, he had a eye appointment that was abnormal. They said he needs to do an
Mm.
MRI. We think he has a brain tumor. We basically did the MRI immediately, negative for brain tumor, so he didn't have that, thank God. But
Thank
then
God.
you need to see a neurologist because um his brain doesn't look good. It looks like very small for his age. And it's just like, oh, that's weird. So we went to this appointment, like not even remotely thinking anything about Alzheimer's because at this point we've been doing psychiatry, psychology, all that, thinking that it is mental health.
Mental health. Yeah.
It's changes that we were seeing, and we're sitting at that appointment, and she's asking me these questions, and I'm telling you, oh yeah, he's gaining weight, he's eating carbs and just like candy, like he's vegan, so his appetite is different, his diet is different, and he's just spending money, like not even registering that he needs to like stop, and he's losing temper more easily, and he's complaining that he's forgetting stuff, and he got
Mm.
lost driving, and she's looking at me, she's like, "You're a clinician, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a clinician." She's like, "Think like a clinician." And then she showed me the brain MRI. She said, "Look at this brain MRI." And that was the first time that I realized, oh, I'm a caregiver now.
Yeah.
That's when he was diagnosed. And basically all of that first part of the year was just like doing all the tests to confirm the
Mm.
diagnosis. And then she sent us to the Young Onset Clinic at Hopkins, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And this is a very specialized clinic. Paco was 46. So basically, she just sent us there, and they did the genetic testing, and that's when it came back that Paco had the genetic mutation and that the diagnosis was confirmed.
Mm.
How I ended up in this journey with my husband.
Yeah, so it's been, what, so years since then. And I'm sure for both of you, right? There's talk about the grief, I guess, a little bit. Like for both of like I imagine when Paco, you were diagnosed and you're hearing it, Zahydie, and knowing like the grief that how your life is going to change and it's playing out differently than you thought. Like how did you and how do you cope with that?
Yeah. Um, I think luckily because we had been dealing with a lot of changes even before the diagnosis that now we know it's the Alzheimer's, right?
Mm-hmm.
We sought mental health treatment. So we both were doing individual treatments, like he was with a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I have been doing therapy because I was trying to figure out like what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because initially, when you're going through an undiagnosed neurocognitive disorder, it's disruptive, but I guess you don't realize how disruptive it is in the beginning, just
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have the awareness, right? But so I was having thoughts like, I know he loves me, right? I know I'm the most important
Mm-hmm.
person or one of the most important persons in his life. I know he loves me. Is something happening with this marriage? Like, is there's a disconnect? Like, what's happening? So I said, you know what? I have things that maybe I need to address. And I started doing therapy, like even before.
Before the diagnosis. Yeah.
Well, it was beautiful because I had been working with my therapist like for months when we got the diagnosis. So it transformed the focus.
Yeah. You didn't have to go looking for somebody. You already had an established relationship. She felt like she knew both of you all.
Uh-huh. And everything that I've been processing is just like, now we know, like now, okay, now it makes sense. Everything started to make sense. So we were both getting our individual kind of support.
Good.
And to me, to this day, that's one of the single most important things that I can tell you. It's sustained my sanity.
Do you think you have to find a certain type of therapist or
Actually, that's a great question.
yeah,
And so my therapist, he helped me so much initially. But it got to a point that I felt that, because remember when I went into therapy, I was thinking something else.
yeah,
Throughout the process, especially that first year, I quickly realized like maybe I need to find a different therapist, right? Because he was great and he helped me tremendously. But I think it got to the point that probably he didn't have the training to deal with
mm,
what I needed to deal with in therapy.
yeah,
Because what you said is that's it, it's the grief. And there are therapists that are specialized in grief therapy, and that's it. So last year, I think it was like September, the practice that he was working with closed, ceased
mm,
operations like from one day to another. So I was left without a therapist. And I said, okay, this is a reset. This is probably good. And I basically sought out someone who has like very specific qualities and certifications and all that in grief therapy.
and grief
And
therapy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
at
mean,
the
think people think about death as grief, but there's so many griefs when it comes to life and caregiving. So I'm glad. What a great brain you have too to like reframe that. Like I think some people be like, oh no, even my therapist has abandoned me, but really to reframe it and think, oh, now here I can seize this opportunity to really find somebody that can connect. And I know that you all are social about sharing your story, and I'm so appreciative of them. I'm sure the dementia community and the caregiving community is for you, but why do you feel like it's critical to do that?
I think I think it's critical because in our case, I'm just going to talk about our case. Um, we're different in the sense that Paco's age is not the typical
Yeah.
story. And initially, I think I was even though his dad was also diagnosed very early, when I met him, he was already sick.
Okay.
So I guess in my mind, hold on, I have my dog here. My dog is here. I have five dogs
Oh
and
my goodness. I have two dogs, but I've got them.
we have five rescue dogs.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. That will never be bored.
Never fighting here. So I was saying my father-in-law was already sick when I met him. So I don't think it registered that he was a young person when
Mm,
I met him, right? And then obviously he passed on from Alzheimer's. So when you think about Alzheimer's, you think about your grandpa, your grandma,
the 70s and 80s. Yes.
you think about someone older. Even me as a clinician is just like, oh, this is happening. Like, oh Lord, like I cannot believe that we're in this situation. Chronologically, it doesn't make sense. Like it's
Hmm.
brain, right? So when we started reaching out to other people, we started realizing, oh, there's a lot of people. Like this is happening to obviously maybe not necessarily as young as Paco, but we know people younger than Paco that
Wow.
have already passed because of this disease. Like at 37, at 45, it's just like, oh wow, I didn't even know this was out there. Like this was actually happening.
Is it consider early onset anything below age 65 or 60? Yeah,
60.
65. So
Mhm.
yeah, you're in your 40s. Like it's and oh,
Paco was diagnosed when he was 46.
mhm,
He's dead. So that was like, diagnosis was like about 2.5 years ago. Um,
mhm.
so we said, why is it critical? Another part of it is just like when you're diagnosed and you are as a caregiver, you receive this diagnosis, your life, it's honestly shattered. And anybody that says any different, I mean, God bless them, but I'm yet to meet someone who's like, oh yeah, this is such a blessing. Like, no, it's a world shattering disease, right? And I can see how consuming it is and how devastating it is. And I can see all of that, but at the same time, after that intense first year of grieving, like it took us a whole year to grieve and we didn't tell anybody, only like 5 or 6 people.
Mm.
And we were working with our mental health providers intensively to process what was happening, understand it, and be able to talk about it because we were not able to talk about
So you
this at
wanted to
all.
give yourselves the space to work through it
Yeah,
before kind of widening your circle and bringing other people into it.
yeah. And because I wasn't ready for the questions. Because once you are out there, people ask questions.
Hmm.
And I
Or
could,
give advice, unsolicited advice.
yes, true. And I wasn't ready emotionally to deal with either one of those. To either answer the questions that were going to arise
Mm.
or deal with the unsolicited advice or just like, people always will have an opinion on what you're doing and how you're doing it. And to me, it was very important for me to figure out number one, how we were going to do this, not me, because it's a team, how we're going to do this, how we're going to carry ourselves, what are our goals in this stage of our lives, and then build the boundaries around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you share any of that with me? Like, I'm curious, like, what was true? Like, we were like, okay, we've got these things in place. Like, what were some of those building blocks that you felt like you had put around you?
Yeah. So first of all, it was finding a place that we were comfortable with the disease. Like we've accepted it, right? We
Yeah.
didn't immediately. It took us or at least maybe Paco accepted it quicker than I did. Because obviously his family history. But it was just accepting it, feeling stable emotionally, like I can actually have a conversation, figuring out treatment,
Hmm.
figuring out the implications, what this means to the family, what this means to everybody, having deep conversations about our future, like how does progression look like financially, legally, all of these
Did you have
decisions.
help with that, or was that the two of you all
That
figuring that
was
out?
No, it was both of us, always having conversations, it's just like, okay, because then we realize that because we don't have children. So we realized quickly that, oh, there's a lot of planning, legal and stuff that we haven't actually done just because, we don't have children. So, and it was just like, oh, no, no, it doesn't matter that you don't have children. You still
Yeah.
have to plan. So it was just a matter of like planning. It was just, okay, how does the progression look like? What's going to happen if this happens? Meaning, um, are we considering placement in any, in 5 years or 10 years? Are we these conversations
Sure.
we needed to have?
Courageous conversations, I call those.
Yes, and yeah, and very heartbreaking conversations too. But these
Sure.
are conversations that I feel a lot of people kind of shy away. And I understand, like you don't want to talk about like the grim
I
and
mean, we
the
all need to have them. My husband and I just did this last year to get all our paperwork and our trust and stuff. Like, I've lived through different family members, and I'm like, ooh, I just don't want this to be difficult for anybody. You know, it's peace of mind, really. It's self-care, like, as it is, it gives you big time peace of mind, I think, to have those things in place.
Absolutely. And in terms of, how do we, like who makes the decisions, what decisions are to be made, and what are you comfortable with doing or me doing even, when you're not
Hmm.
able to do them anymore. And it was just, a lot of that we hadn't, set up like financially and all that. And it was just like, okay, we have to do this now before we even tell people because once you do then people are going to have their opinions. And one of the things that really surprised me was that I thought just because I'm the wife I'm going to be able to make whatever decisions I want, and the attorney was like, no,
Yeah, no, that's the probate and all of that. It's like,
you
yeah,
don't have.
and you want Paco to be in those decisions and have a voice in those decisions. And so the earlier the better, for all of that. Did you see an elder law care attorney? Was that?
So we saw an estate planning attorney, and you're right, I wanted him to make his decisions. Like
Yes.
I wanted, and it was also important for me that he made those decisions consciously.
Yes.
So
Well, and
it's
then there's no friction with anybody. Like, it's like, this is what I want. This is what Paco wants. Like, there's no arguing with us. Yeah.
looks like those decisions are consciously made. That's what he wants.
Mm.
That way, no one, not even me, I can have an opinion about it. So
Mm.
those are some of the kind of the building blocks. And it was just like, okay, what do we want to do? Travel. all of these little things that you probably think in a larger kind of scheme, but you have to do it quickly. You have months because of the diagnosis. It's
Yeah.
just like,
You want to make sure you're getting your big rocks and like the things that are really important to you and the values that you have together. I
yeah.
love that.
It's a learning process because it feels like almost like you're automatic pilot, like you're
Hmm.
just doing things just because you have to do them, but you have to do them very consciously and you have to think and you have to plan, but you're also conscious that you don't have enough time and that
Yeah.
you need more time just because your future has been limited.
Yeah.
And that, oops, sorry about that. Um and that's kind of one of the reality checks of this disease, I think.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. And Paco, feel free, like I don't want to leave you out. If you've got something to add, feel free to chime in.
No, you can ask me whatever you want.
Well, I'd love to chat with you all about the there's a lot of questions, right, about the drug for Alzheimer's, Leqembi. And there's not a lot of people that I know, and I'm in this space that have taken it. There's been a couple people that I've been able to point my father-in-law toward to have conversations. So would love to just hear your take on that journey, like how you decided that it was a fit for you, how you went about the research, um, where you are with that now, wherever you want to start.
I don't know where to start. The Leqembi was first talked about before I got the diagnosis, and it was during my process of the diagnosis when it was approved by FDA, right?
Mhm.
Oh, you
Yeah.
like what are you talking about? Yeah, no, yeah. The Leqembi, yes, the Leqembi hadn't been approved when actually you started taking the medication. He's right.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh, he was on a trial for it.
Yes.
exactly. So
Okay.
when I was uh when my doctors told me there's this medication that's been proven to slow the process of the disease, and I guess I was privileged that since I had a genetic mutation that was uh basis of a study done by the Washington University in St. Louis. Since I've had that mutation, I was uh, taken to this clinical trial by the Washington University of St. Louis
Mhm.
because of my genetic mutation, and I was one of the few people that had this medication even before it was approved by the FDA.
Yeah. When you're doing a trial like that, um do you have to still pay for the drug, or would you?
No, the actual people doing um the clinical trial, they take care of it.
That's a benefit, right, of being and
Oh,
it's a huge
specialist.
benefit because I don't know what does it cost for those of you who aren't part of the trial
Patients are, it's like about $36,000 a year.
a year, and that's you take this for the rest of your life.
So yes and no. So Baco it's through Washington University, but it's
Okay.
also the Diane Center, and that's DIAN, which is Dominantly Inherited Alzheimer's Network, right?
Okay.
They're the ones basically paying for the drug, right? And it's obviously it's autosomal Alzheimer's. So if you have the genetic mutation, then most likely, and if you're listening, most likely you're going to be able to benefit from this network. And they provide so much support. Plus, they have access to really
Mhm.
innovative treatment even before they're, obviously approved. So the trial that Paco is right now is a trial for a medication that's called E2814, and that's a tau targeting medication. Part of the um trial is that everybody who's enrolled in that trial, whether they're positive for the gene and still have no symptoms, or if you're positive and you have symptoms, they will provide the Leqembi.
Okay.
So Paco started the medication in June of last year, and it was approved, I think, either July or August of last year. So he had been on the medication for maybe like a month or so before it was actually approved. So they're giving that medication and they're paying for it. And what they're wanting to know is if you're doing a tau targeting medication and you're targeting in the brain tau and beta amyloid plaques, if that is a better therapy than just doing one medication, which is, let's say, Leqembi.
Okay.
So the Leqembi, it's not necessarily the study, it's the other medication, the E2814. But
Okay.
they whoever enrolls in this study, they give the Leqembi.
They get look.
Okay. Okay.
It's not for
So
your life, because the way that the protocol, the way that these medicines work, obviously they're wanting to clear, in the case of Leqembi, they want to clear beta amyloid plaques, right? So if when they do your MRIs, if the medication is successful in clearing that, then you stop the medication. And then
okay.
once it builds up, then you restart the medication.
Gotcha. Okay.
You give a medication because then you can cause a whole bunch of problems.
I also was privileged enough that I was diagnosed on the earlier stages of the disease,
Sure.
because if there's a small window for the Leqembi, if you are at a later stage on the disease, they won't approve the
Yeah.
Leqembi. So I was privileged for that.
Yeah. So timing is important.
Mhm.
So would you recommend then, like if somebody's thinking, let's say somebody's going to diagnose with the early onset, what would be step one? Like looking back, like what would you recommend that if they wanted to see that they were a candidate for this? How do you do that?
First of all, is family history. If you know that you had one of your parents died from or has Alzheimer's, and your grandfather had Alzheimer's, and you have many uncles, aunts that have developed Alzheimer's, then you should uh, start asking questions and tell your doctor. And if your doctor doesn't know, get another doctor. And
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of doctors who don't even know this exists. They don't know about a genetic mutation. They don't know that Alzheimer's can be uh, diagnosed at an earlier stage in life. And when you tell them about early onset Alzheimer's, they think it's an early stage of the disease, and they don't know about that this early on stage Alzheimer's is that the disease is developed at an earlier stage of your life. They don't know the difference between that. So, you should get a doctor who knows this stuff.
Yeah. A neurologist maybe, or a,
Because when you think of doctors, you think they all know everything about the latest things about medicine, and they do not. And you should get like probably a general practitioner maybe doesn't know, and that's okay. That doesn't mean he's not knowledgeable about the stuff they do, but you should get maybe like a neurologist, someone
And
that has
it's
been
more than a neurologist, someone who specializes in dementia.
okay.
Because I've spoken in this past year to lots of doctors, which in my opinion, they're amazing. They're amazing doctors. But when you ask, they say, well, he has Alzheimer's. I'm like, yeah. Is he gonna go in remission? I'm like, what do you mean? This is not cancer. Like, yeah.
What? Yeah.
You know, highly specialized doctors. So just because of the age, and I go back to that question that you asked me, why is this critical? Because there's a lot of people in our position, and unfortunately they don't have access. And the other thing that I see happen both clinically and personally is that I see a lot of people who are diagnosed, well, you have Alzheimer's, and that's it.
Yeah. It's not a death sentence. You can live with Alzheimer's and
Have
have joy and have, yes, all of that.
Yeah, but the doctors are not giving us, some of them, not all of them, but some of the doctors are not giving resources. And it's just
Yeah.
are things that are out there. So initially, one of the things that I think it's important is trying to get someone to a specialized clinic. That makes a whole world of difference.
Mhm.
Trying to get your loved one to a teaching hospital, that makes a lot of difference. Making sure that your doctor is knowledgeable in dementia, that's also important. And there are avenues, a clinical trial is a great avenue because, it releases you from the financial burden of
Mhm.
the medications and all that. Like, for example, and back when I were having this conversation, we were in Washington advocating with Congress members. And when we were there, it was just like, Paco and I have, I think, normalized our experience because we've had honestly amazing doctors and it's been rather accessible.
Mm.
Point that his infusions are here in my house. He gets
Yes, that's so nice. Is that because of this trial or is that open to anybody? Okay.
trial. And it's just like, oh, our experience, but our experience is not necessarily representative because there's a lot of people who, number one, do not have access to the medication. Number two, if they do have access, then insurances are not covering. Like yesterday, I have a friend and she is a caregiver. She lives in Minnesota, and I met her through one of the support groups online, and we became friends. And she travels, and whenever she comes to Orlando, we have like caregiver lunch dates.
I love it.
It's amazing. Because there's something different about talking to someone who's also a caregiver. Like,
Yes, they're my people.
yes, it's different. It hits different. And her husband, she just learned that Blue Cross Blue Shield is not gonna cover the cost of the medication, and they're stopping treatment from 1 week to another after he's been on the medication for like 5 or 6 months
Yes.
because he's young. That's
And
that's he's not on Medicare yet. Because obviously a 50, 40 something year old is not going to be on Medicare unless you fight for it, right?
Mhm.
So
But
that,
Medicare will not pay for this, I don't think, would they?
yeah,
I
I think
think so.
Medicare is paying for
Medicare
it.
is the only one.
Medicaid is it's the only one.
Medicaid or
Here.
Medicare? Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Well, what has it been like this past year? Having the infusions and like, were there side effects? Has life looked any different?
let me preface by saying that the infusions are every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Every 2 weeks you have, so there's a lot of time commitment, right? Once you start treatment, it's every 2 weeks on the dot. You have to do it every 2 weeks, right? And
And
the
not everybody can get it in their home. Most people have to go
most
someplace.
people won't get it on like you. I'm blessed,
Yeah.
No, you have to drive and you have to go to infusion center and all that. And then it's a lengthy process because the medication, like you have to do like it's a process that will take probably like a 3 hour appointment.
Okay.
Every- And you do that indefinitely. So that's kind of the logistics part of it. But there's also parts that people don't think about. And it's necessarily all the follow-ups. Like if you're doing this medication, you need to do MRIs, which they're called safety MRIs. You have to do blood work, you have to do PET scans, you have to do so many other things because this medication does have side effects, which we haven't had. And I'm so grateful
Knock
for
on wood. Yes.
wood. But there are side effects that you have to deal with, and sometimes, and you have to do this brain MRIs to make sure that your brain is tolerating the medicine, right?
Mm.
Causing any disruption. So if you're taking the medication, but you're not doing all the other things that you have to do in terms of like the MRIs and the blood work and all of these biomarkers, then I wouldn't advise it.
Because you don't really know. You don't know if it's working or
Well, you don't know if it's working, but you're also not following the safety protocols. And that's
I
another
see.
who's going to pay for the MRIs? Or can you afford an MRI every few weeks? There's a
Right.
lot of cost. So it's not, that's why I was asked when you asked about the infusions, I was saying is the medication is $36,000, but there are so many other
Other.
that you have to consider as well. And I think that's the awareness that we are so passionate about bringing because it's just not one thing. It's a whole cosmos of things. And if you don't have a knowledgeable doctor, then you risk being on the medication, not doing your safety MRIs. If something happens, you're not going to catch it on time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. And then in terms of the side effects, Paco can talk to you about his side effects.
I mean, the side effects, the first, I guess the first one was the most, I guess, troublesome, because it was like, it was like a new thing coming into my body, and I guess I think my body tried to reject it as much.
Yeah.
But it was really rough the first maybe like 3 times, but it started like getting like less and less side effects as the
Like nauseous? Were you feeling nauseous?
nauseous, but a lot of body pain, like my
Mm.
hurt, I had fever, I had what else?
Just like headaches,
Yeah.
fever, kind of a hot sensation, and
Just
just like feeling tired,
Like really
Not yourself. Yeah.
like almost like a flu-like reaction, you know?
Okay.
Like you feel crappy,
But
you know?
now 6 months after, I just get like a body pain, like maybe like when you start to feel bad when you get like a cold or something, but it just maybe like a half a day and that's it.
Yeah.
Tolerable. Like last
It's
infusion, he
like,
had the
oh,
infusions, and then that same day
Yeah.
we went to a comedy show.
yeah, exactly.
Which a few months ago he would not have been able to.
Okay. So it gets better. It's gotten better for you. That's good. That's
It's-
good.
And I know people who are on the medication and they have zero side effects, like nothing.
Right.
That's so
Yeah, it's important to add that I have an underlying autoimmune disease. I have an autoimmune disease, which actually
Me too. I have an autoimmune disease of hypothyroidism. So yeah. Yeah.
have seronegative rheumatoid arthritis. So
Okay.
it actually flares up my
Yeah.
RA.
I see.
And,
Makes sense.
so
Yeah.
people who don't have autoimmune conditions have a better.
Yeah, and also, you know, talk to your doctors, because when we were seeing that Paco was having like those unpleasant side effects, they're pre-medicating him, and that helps significantly. You know, you can get pre-medication like Benadryl. They do like a little cocktail like Tylenol, some steroids, and they do that before the infusion, and then it's very tolerable. So we've had honestly really positive experience. We haven't had any real scares, to be honest. And in terms of it's working or not, it takes time. It's not something like you're going to see a difference, you know, in a month or so.
No.
We had we went to Hopkins last week actually, and the doctor, to me, this is good news. He said, I don't think this is necessarily stopping the disease, but it's not progressing as quickly as we thought. And that's what we want, because that's the medication. The medication is not necessarily going to stop this disease.
It's not a cure yet.
Sure, but it's supposed to slow it down, and that's what we think, you know, we're seeing. Paco, obviously there's changes and there's decline, but it's not going as quickly as we initially were told.
Mhm.
You know,
Which was your goal?
yeah, and that's the goal. And to me, it was like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take it. That's good. That's good news. I'm like, it could be worse.
Where have you found support, like for both of you? Like, I mean, I know you've got your therapy appointments, but with other caregivers or other people who are living similar, like did the Johns Hopkins, did they connect you to other people, or the Diane
Yeah, no,
Center?
actually Hopkins connected us to Diane.
Okay.
I think that's the important part of like going to a place that, you know, that they have resources, right?
Mhm.
It connected us to Diane. Diane has amazing resources. They actually have a support group, which is obviously specifically for patients who have the diagnosis and are symptomatic.
Okay.
Paco meets with them, and they've formed a beautiful community, and they love each other. Well, I also attend a support group, which is for the wives or, you know, partners
Perfect. Yeah.
for them. And Lorenzo's house, I don't know if you know about.
Yes, I do know about Lorenzo's house.
Oh my God, they're amazing. Lorenzo's houses, they're amazing. They have been able to foster a nice community there. And also our local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association has
Okay,
been
good.
amazing. It's been instrumental. They've also created an amazing community of advocates. It gave us an avenue to feel empowered and do something about this, and not let the disease kind of define us or define our future. So it's given us, you know, a good foundation to do what we wanted to do, which is, you know, get this message out. Um,
Yeah.
we have an amazing support system. We're
I
very
love that. Well, I'm going to link to a lot of those things so people can connect with that. I want to kind of switch gears because I want to know too, like, how are you seizing the days and like living with joy, and like what are you all looking forward to, and maybe just shine some light on that, because I think those are the pieces that don't get spotlighted enough.
Yes, no, and I think this is so important. I think this is so important because like I said, it's very easy to be consumed and let the grief kind of overpower. I think it's important to understand grief and leave not leave, but live with it, because I don't think it's something that it's just going to go away, because that's the reality. The reality is that the disease is here, and everybody knows how the disease progresses and all that. However, I think the shift was, okay, we're in this situation. It sucks. Are we going to just live crying every day? Or are we going to find meaning and purpose and do something about this? And then when we decided that's what we wanted to do, we've been very intentional. So everything that we do is very intentional.
I love that.
Yeah, no, and we said, well, you know what? What do we love our dogs? Like I said, we have 5. We love our dogs. So that's a huge part of it. They're therapeutic for Paco.
Mhm.
We love art. We love traveling. So we focus on that. Like, okay, if we have, because we travel a lot for medical reasons, a lot, and it's exhausting. But if we're traveling for medical reasons, I make sure to
Sprinkle some fun.
slip some fun. Yeah. So
Yeah, why not?
doesn't matter where we go, we're gonna find a museum, we're gonna find something. It's a baseball game, it's gonna be a concert, it's gonna be a friend that lives there. So everything has an intention so that we counteract the bad of
Mhm.
these, right? So we're looking forward to, so we're traveling. So Paco, when he was diagnosed that first year, the doctors and my work, my God, my work is so supportive as well. Like I'm so blessed too.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Helped, they basically told me, tell us what you need to do, make it work, and that's it. So I was able to shift around my responsibilities to make so that everybody fits, you know, and that I'm taking care of Paco, I'm taking care of my career and all that.
It's like a puzzle. It's a big puzzle.
It is a puzzle. It is a puzzle. Yep. And we have, like, you know, everything has to be written down, otherwise I forget. So they encourage us to travel. They're like, you need to travel. It's now. It's now. You have to do it. And I was like, how am I going to take time off? I have to work. I have so many financial responsibilities because he's not working. And now and
Mhm.
that's it. No. And initially I took a whole month off, and we said, Paco, sit down, tell me places that you want to see. And we made like this little bucket list. And
Yeah, what's on the list? What was on it?
so that first trip, we were in Italy and Germany and in Spain, and it was like an art.
Love it.
So we went to museums that we've always wanted to visit, and we went to places that we've always wanted to visit, and we were there for like a month, a whole month. And ever since, that's what we do. We're traveling a lot, we're seeing places, and we're having experiences. It's just like there's a concert, we're going.
Yeah.
An opera, we're going. You know, it's just like, it's finding intention. It's just like, even in the small moments. I was talking to my therapist, and I was telling, like, to me, just going to a restaurant by myself, sitting down and just enjoying the food by myself, that's a treat. That's a retreat to me. You know, I
Yes.
for an hour, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just sitting there. I'm just enjoying my food, you know, because as a care partner, you need time for yourself too.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's just like I was riled up, you know, you're stressed. So
Do you
let me
feel guilty when you do that?
know.
Okay, good. I mean, a lot of people really struggle with that, but it's like, but you're also a clinician who has helping people with mental health. So I'm wondering if that maybe informs, you're probably telling other people not to feel guilty about it.
I did at the beginning. When I was, you know, it took me a while to like have fun and go out with my friends, right? Because but it doesn't make me feel guilty now. It did in the beginning, but now it's not guilt. It's just like, oh, I feel bad Paco's not here, you know? Like it's oh.
It's
So
okay to miss them. It's okay to miss them.
it's just like, oh, I wish, I wish he would see this, or I'm in a place and I see a couple, and it's just like, oh, so it's more of like nostalgia than,
Mhm.
but yeah, at the beginning I did, but not anymore, because I understand how important that is. I understand
What clicked for you? Because like, listen, as a coach, like there are some people that I cannot break that, cannot, I want them to mitigate burnout, and I want them to understand that, a break is better than a breakdown, right? Like it's just,
what
it's,
clicked. I
it's,
I think it's a combination of our relationship has always been like that too. Like we've always had um prioritize obviously the time as a couple, but also like me doing
yeah,
having independent identities as well. I think there's a lot of cultural stuff too attached to how one person might perceive um you know having fun without the other person, but also having a deep understanding of the consequences of caregiver burnout.
yeah,
Understanding that was like, okay, I understand the effects on the health, physical health. I understand the effects on lethality and mortality. I know this. I know that if I continue to feel exhausted every single day because I want to do it all, I'm not going to be able to do anything.
right.
That was kind of the shift, like understanding like I can do all things, just not at the same time.
Yes. I used to say the same thing. I can have it all, not all. I can't have it all at once.
And it was just,
Yes.
yeah,
It's so interesting. You
and
do
the
have to kind of get,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you have to get to that point. Like, I'm curious. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And but also like I think the support, because he's very like, no, no, go, 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 have fun. No, no, just, and if
It's
I do,
not hanging on to your dress and be like, yeah, don't go. That would
yes,
be harder. Yeah.
Spock was just like, have fun. I'll be fine here.
Plus you come back and you have stories to share and things to talk about. Like, it's like, I do think like my husband and I have a good balance, I think, of doing stuff together and doing stuff apart, which, yeah. Well, I love that. I want to ask you a question. This is my journal that I wrote. It helps people prioritize their self-care. It's called the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal.
I
It's-
need that.
So, well, and I have my own caregiver story. That was what prompted all of this too. But um, let's see, I'm going to ask you guys a question here. Um, how about what are two of your go-to healthy snacks? Like when you need to kind of grab something and go, like what's your go-to?
Mine,
Yeah, both of y'all.
hummus
Oh,
and hummus, yes. And peanuts. I was looking because I
like
had it.
salty peanuts, a little bit.
Yes, I have to have, but I get the ones because otherwise I'm gonna eat a lot. So I get the ones that are packed, like it's like 100 calories.
Yes.
I always have multiple bags of those, and then hummus.
How about you, Paco?
Oh, healthy. I don't know.
What are your snacks then? Your go-to snacks? You know what? Thank you for being
I
honest.
go to
Yes.
donuts and I mean I'm vegan, so I don't transgress that the veganness, I guess. But I do get like really bad, not healthy snacks.
Gotcha.
I mean, I like fruit, so I
Me too. I'm really good at eating. So good.
Cantaloupe, it's yours.
cantaloupe and
Cantaloupe.
yeah, and watermelon and
Oh, that's good. Watermelon.
Yeah.
I
so
love that.
I'm not a sweets person, so I can do without the sweets.
yeah, I do like a lot of vegan ice cream and all that.
I love that. How are y'all, like, how do you capture the memories that you're living?
I think it's a combination of obviously taking and I didn't do that. I didn't do that at all. Like I wasn't a person that was always like taking pictures or videos. I was living, in the moment, not but now I'm very intentional. And that was actually a lady at the support group. She said, take pictures, take videos. You will want to have those. So
Yeah.
now I'm very intentional about that. But sometimes I just find myself not just like contemplating it and just like memorizing everything that's happening or writing it down.
There's definitely a theme in our conversation about intention, I think is a big, yeah, it's like, it's not just gonna like, hey, let's see what happens. Like you're living with purpose and very purposeful, both of you, about what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's
I,
so,
actually, it makes me emotional. Yeah.
it's okay. Listen, I leak every podcast interview, so I just leak a little bit. It's okay. It just means we're human. So I could talk to y'all all day. You're lovely people. And I just thank you again for what you've done, for me and my family. How do people stay in touch with you all? How do they keep follow your story and your journey on advocacy as well?
Yeah, thank you. So we have this Instagram account that we started last year. No intention or no knowledge that people were going to be remotely interested in listening to what we had to say. But we figured, if we can help one person, then that's it. And honestly, it's been wonderful. Like we've been able to help so many people connect, people
Good.
that get in touch with me with actually medication, the Leqembi and all that. So it's our Instagram account. We do have a TikTok account, but I'm not too active on the TikTok. So we're more active on the Instagram account, which it's a Spanish word. It's inolvidablemente. And the reason that I decided to select that is it translates to unforgettable mind.
Unforgettable Mind. I love that. We'll link to it for sure in the show notes. So, and many of the other things, Lorenzo's house and all the other resources that you shared. And but I love that. Well, you all are adorable couple, and thank you so much for just, sharing your story and letting people kind of, into your lives a little bit, because I do think the vulnerability is healing, right? Like it's to give purpose and capture all of that. So I look,
wanted
yeah.
to add something, and I guess what I wanted to add is that we are aware that we're really, really, really privileged that we surrounded ourselves with a great team of doctors. I surrounded myself with a great team of caregivers. My wife surrounded herself with a great team of people who support caregivers. So we wanted to reach out to anyone that may feel something is wrong, and they can reach out to us anonymously. They can reach out to us, and then we can, I guess, connect you with what we can and what we know. So that's what we wanted to do with our Instagram account, and just with sharing our story. Because
Such a gift. It's a gift. Thank you. It's a gift that you were passing on to other people to fast track them to support and resources. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Aw. I appreciate y'all. Let's keep in touch. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.